She was a healer who climbed the mountain daily to care for an old woman everyone else feared. One stormy night, the vampire king appeared at the door, and the dying woman whispered, "My son." Her kindness had kept his mother alive for years, trapping him in an immortal curse he couldn't break. The path to Lady Isara's hut was always cold, but tonight it felt like walking into a tomb. Nora pulled her wool cloak tighter as snow crunched beneath her boots. The basket of herbs and medicines swung at her side, its familiar weight a comfort against the mountain wind that howled through the pines. She'd made this climb every evening for 3 years now, ever since she was 16 and her grandmother had passed the duty to her with a warning: never ask the old woman about her past. Just keep her alive. The villagers below whispered plenty of stories to fill the silence. They said Lady Isara had crawled out of the northern wastes 40 years ago, more corpse than woman, with dried blood crusted around her mouth and a strange symbol burned into her palm, a crowned serpent eating its own tail. Some claimed she was a witch. Others said she was cursed nobility, banished for unspeakable crimes. Nora didn't care what she was. She only knew that beneath the papery skin and hollow eyes, Isara was lonely. And loneliness was something Nora understood. The hut came into view, perched on the cliff's edge like a bird's nest made of weathered wood and desperation. Candlelight flickered in the single window. Good. Isara was awake. Nora knocked twice and entered without waiting for an answer. The room was smaller than most root cellars, dominated by a straw bed where Isara lay propped against thin pillows. Her silver hair spread around her like cobwebs. Her face, though lined with age, held a strange beauty: sharp cheekbones, aristocratic nose, lips that might have once smiled easily. "You're late," Isara rasped, but there was no anger in it. Just fact. The baker's son fell from the mill roof. Broken arm. Nora set down her basket and began preparing the evening tonic: chamomile for sleep, willow bark for pain, and the special dark powder Isara needed, the one Nora's grandmother had never explained. "He'll live," but his mother cried like he was dying. Mothers do that. Something flickered across Isara's face. Regret, maybe. Or memory. Nora helped her sit up, noting how light she'd become. Like holding a bird made of glass. She pressed the cup to Isara's lips, watching her drink in small, careful sips. The fire in the hearth crackled, casting dancing shadows on walls covered in strange marks, symbols Nora had never seen in any of her healing books. She'd traced them with her fingers once, when Isara was sleeping. They'd felt warm, almost alive. "Tell me about your day," Isara whispered, settling back against the pillows. This was their ritual. Nora would talk, and Isara would listen, hungry for stories of a world she no longer touched. Nora obliged, describing the baker's wife's hysterics, the way the priest had blessed the boy with holy water that smelled suspiciously like gin, how the blacksmith's daughter was sweet on the miller's son, and everyone knew except the two of them. Isara's eyes drifted half-closed, a ghost of a smile on her lips. Then the fire went out. Not flickered, not dimmed, died, as if something had sucked the life from it in a single breath. The temperature dropped so fast Nora could see her breath fog in front of her face. Ice crystals formed on the inside of the window. The candles guttered and died, one by one, until only moonlight remained. "No," Isara breathed, and for the first time in 3 years, Nora heard fear in her voice. Real, bone-deep terror. "Not yet. Please, not yet." "What's wrong?" Nora reached for her hand and found it ice-cold, trembling. "Lady Isara, what's?" The sound of hooves on frozen ground. Heavy. Deliberate. "Wrong." No one came up this mountain at night. No one could. The path was too treacherous in the dark, too easy to miss and plummet into the ravine below. But something was coming. Nora moved to the window, her healer's instinct to protect overriding her fear. Through the frost-covered glass, she saw it. A carriage, black as a wound in the white snow, pulled by horses that didn't steam or pant despite the climb. No driver sat at the reins. The horses simply knew where to go. The carriage stopped 15 feet from the hut. Silence. Then the door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, impossibly tall, wrapped in a cloak that seemed to be made of shadows and night itself. When he pushed back his hood, moonlight caught his face, pale as marble, beautiful as a knife's edge, with eyes that gleamed red in the darkness. His hair was black, falling past his shoulders, and when he moved, it wasn't walking. It was gliding. Every instinct in Nora's body screamed, "Run." But Isara was behind her, helpless and weak. The man reached the door. He didn't knock. The wood simply swung open, as if the hut itself was bowing to him. He stepped inside, and the air pressure changed. Nora felt it in her ears, her chest, her bones, like being at the bottom of a deep well. His presence was heavy, ancient, carrying the weight of centuries. His red eyes swept the room and landed on Isara. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Isara spoke, her voice cracking. "My son." Nora's blood turned to ice.
"So?"
The man moved forward, dropping to one knee beside the bed with fluid grace. But there was no tenderness in the gesture. His beautiful face was twisted with rage, with pain, with something so complicated Nora couldn't name it. "Mother," the word was acid. "You should not have made me come." "I didn't." Isara's hand fluttered weakly. "I didn't call you. Your heartbeat did." He touched her face with fingers that ended in sharp, black nails. Not touching, hovering, as if contact might burn him. "Every weakening pulse echoes in my chest. Every breath you struggle for steals one of mine. You know this." His eyes cut to Nora, pinning her in place. "And you," he said softly, dangerously. "You're the one keeping her alive." Nora couldn't speak, couldn't move. She'd seen death before, held the hands of dying patients, watched life leave their eyes. But this man wasn't death. He was something that ruled it. "Who are you?" she managed. His smile was terrible. "I am Lucien, king of the eternal night, lord of the blood covenant, sovereign of the sleeping legion." He stood, towering over her. "And you, little healer, have been interfering with prophecy itself." He moved toward her, each step making the floorboards creak despite his seeming weightlessness. Nora's back hit the wall. There was nowhere to go. "Please," Isara gasped. "Don't hurt her. She doesn't understand." "She's kept you alive for 3 years," Lucien's voice rose, and the windows rattled. 3 years you've clung to this miserable half-life. And for what? To punish me? To keep me chained? "To keep you safe," Isara whispered. Lucien froze. The rage on his face cracked, revealing something underneath, something raw and bleeding that might have been grief. "Your kindness," he said, turning back to Isara, "has always been my cage." Then he looked at Nora again, and his expression hardened. "Tell me, girl, do you know what your mercy has cost the world?" Nora found her voice, though it shook. "I know I keep a dying woman comfortable. I know that's what healers do. This woman," Lucien said coldly, "is the reason I cannot die. And I," his hand clenched into a fist, "and the reason she should." Before Nora could respond, a new sound cut through the night. Bells. Distant but growing closer. Dozens of them, ringing in unison. Lucien's had snapped toward the door, his entire body going rigid. "No," he breathed. "They couldn't have tracked me here. I was careful." "The order." Isara struggled to sit up. "They follow your shadow. You've led them right to us." Lucien's red eyes met Nora's, and in them she saw something that terrified her more than his rage. Fear. "Then we're all going to die tonight," he said flatly. "Because they don't care who burns. Only that I do." The bells grew louder, and through the window, Nora saw torches. Dozens of them, climbing the mountain path like angry fireflies. Coming for the monster. Coming for them all. The bells were a death knell, and they were running out of time. "How many?" Lucien's voice was sharp, controlled, a general assessing a battlefield. Nora pressed against the window, counting torches. 20, maybe more behind them. The order travels in groups of 50. He moved to Isara's bedside with inhuman speed. They'll surround the hut, set it ablaze, and wait for anything that runs out. Standard vampire purge protocol. I'm not a vampire, Nora said, hating how her voice trembled. You're standing in a room with two of us. That makes you complicit. Lucian lifted Isara as if she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. For just a moment, his expression softened. And marked for death. Isara's hand touched his face. You shouldn't have come. I had no choice. The softness vanished, replaced by bitter anger. You made me this way, remember? Your love, your sacrifice, your damned resurrection spell that bound my existence to yours. Every beat of your failing heart is a countdown to my mortality. I saved you. You cursed me. The windows exploded outward in a shower of glass. Nora threw up her arms as shards flew past her face. When she looked up, Lucian's eyes were blazing crimson, his shadows stretching across the walls like wings. I was ready to die. I had accepted it. But you couldn't let go. You were my son. Tears streaked down Isara's hollow cheeks. You were 19 and dying of plague, and I had the power to bring you back. What mother wouldn't? A wise one. Lucian's voice dropped to something cruel. Because you didn't just bring me back. You made me into this. You opened the gates of the blood covenant, bargained with forces that should have stayed buried, and tied your life force to mine so completely that neither of us can be free. He turned to Nora, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Do you understand now, healer? Every kindness you've shown her, every medicine you've given, every extra day you've granted her life, it's another day I'm trapped as a monster. Another day the vampire kingdom waits for a king who will never truly die. Another day the order hunts me, and innocents burn in the crossfire. The bells were louder now. Voices joined them, chanting in a language Nora didn't recognize. We need to leave, Isara whispered. Both of you. I'll stay. They want a vampire. Let them find 1 inch. Noble. Lucian's laugh was hollow. But if you die, I die. Or worse, I become mortal in a room full of vampire hunters. Either way, they win. Nora's mind raced through impossible options. The hut had 1 door, windows on 3 sides, and a cliff face on the 4th.
No escaperuts.
No weapons. Nothing but her herbs and…
Wait.
The cellar, she said suddenly. The root cellar beneath the floorboards. It connects to the old mine shaft. Lucian's eyes narrowed. How far does it go? I don't know. My grandmother said never to explore it, that the tunnels were unstable. Nora was already moving, shoving aside the small table to reveal the trapdoor. But unstable is better than burning. The order will have scouts at every exit. Lucian shifted Isara in his arms. The moment we emerge. Then we don't emerge. Nora pulled the trapdoor open, revealing darkness that smelled of earth and old stone. We hide until they leave. They won't leave. Lucian's voice was flat. They'll camp here for weeks if they must. The order doesn't give up. Do you have a better plan? Lucian stared at her, and for the first time, something like respect flickered in his red eyes. You're braver than you look, little healer. I'm terrified, Nora admitted. But Lady Isara is my patient. I don't abandon patients. A crash, the door splintering inward. But not breaking. Not yet. They're testing our defenses, Lucian said. We have perhaps 2 minutes. He moved to the trapdoor, then paused, looking back at Nora. If you come with us, there's no returning to your normal life. The order marks everyone they see with me. They'll hunt you forever. If I stay, I burn tonight. Nora grabbed her medicine basket. I'll take forever. Something almost like a smile crossed Lucian's face. Then down we go. He descended first. Isara clutched to his chest, moving through the darkness as if he could see perfectly. Nora followed, her hands finding rough carved handholds in the stone. The cellar was smaller than she remembered, Just an 8-foot square with earthen walls and the black mouth of a tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. Above them, the door finally gave way. Boots thundered on wooden floors. "Search everything." A man's voice, harsh with authority. "The Vampire King cannot have gone far. And burn whatever he's touched. We take no chances with corruption." Nora pulled the trapdoor shut as quietly as she could. Darkness swallowed them completely. In the blackness, she felt Lucien's hand close around her wrist, cold, impossibly strong, but strangely gentle. "Stay close," he whispered. "The tunnels ahead were made by things older than my kingdom, and not all of them are dead." They moved into the mountain's throat as smoke began filtering down from above. Behind them, Lady Isara's hut started to burn. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, something else stirred, awakened by the scent of vampire blood and the presence of a king who should not exist. The tunnel was a living thing, breathing cold air, weeping moisture down stone walls, groaning with the weight of the mountain above. Nora's world had shrunk to the circle of dim red light emanating from Lucien's eyes, the only thing keeping her from complete blindness. "How can you see?" she whispered, one hand trailing along the rough stone wall. "I don't see. I feel the blood moving through your veins, hear your heartbeat echoing off the walls, taste the fear in your sweat." His voice came from ahead, emotionless. "It's how we hunt." Nora's skin crawled. That's horrifying. That's survival. They'd been walking for an hour, maybe more. Time felt strange in the dark. Isara had fallen unconscious in Lucien's arms, her breathing shallow and wet-sounding. Each rattling exhale made Lucien's shoulders tense. "She needs rest," Nora said. "Real rest in warmth. These tunnels are too cold for someone in her condition. The surface is too dangerous. She's dying." She's been dying for 40 years, but Lucien's pace slowed. "Every year a little more, dragging me down with her. Do you know what that feels like, healer? To be immortal, but to feel death creeping closer with every sunset? To know that the moment she finally lets go, centuries of power will burn away and leave me as weak as I was the day I first died." There was something broken in his voice. Something that sounded almost human. "Is that why you're angry?" Nora asked quietly. "Because you're afraid." Lucien stopped so abruptly, she nearly collided with him. He turned, his red eyes blazing in the darkness, and for a moment, she thought he might kill her. Instead, he laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Afraid? I am the Vampire King. I have walked through armies and left only corpses. I have burned cities that spoke against me. I have," his voice cracked. "I have done terrible things to stay alive, and it was all meaningless because I can't actually die. Not while she lives. Not while her guilt keeps her clinging to this half-existence, and her existence keeps me shackled to monstrosity. Then why save her now?" Nora challenged. "Why not let the Order find her? Let her burn. Break the curse. Be free." Lucien's face twisted with something that might have been agony. "Because she's my mother," he whispered. "And I am still, despite everything, her son." Isara stirred in his arms, her eyes fluttering open. "Lucien, don't." He looked away. "Don't apologize again. I can't bear it." A sound interrupted them, distant but growing closer. Not the Order's bells this time. Something else. Something that made the hair on Nora's arms stand up. Howling. "They brought hellhounds," Lucien said flatly. "Of course they did." "What are hellhounds?" But Nora already knew she didn't want the answer. "Dogs bred in sacred fire, fed on holy water and the ashes of vampires. They can track us through solid stone." Lucien started moving again, faster now. "And they don't stop until their prey is dead or they are." The howling grew louder, echoing through the tunnels in a way that made it impossible to tell which direction it came from. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. "There," Lucien pointed to where the tunnel forked. "That passage slopes upward. It should lead back toward the village." "The village?" Nora's stomach dropped. "We can't go there. The Order will." "The Order is already there." They emerged from a crack in the hillside half a mile above Nora's village. The sight that greeted them turned her blood to ice. The village was burning. Not the whole village, just certain buildings. The bakery, the blacksmith's forge, her grandmother's old cottage where Nora had lived. Buildings chosen with purpose, spreading just enough to cause chaos, but not enough to destroy everything. Smoke rose in black columns against the dawn sky. "They're making a statement," Lucien said quietly. "Anyone who helped you, anyone who might have known about Isara. They're purging all possible connections." Nora watched the blacksmith's daughter run from her burning home, clutching a baby. Watched the baker try to save his flour stores. Watched Father Benedict, drunk even at dawn, attempting to organize a bucket brigade. These were her people, her patients, her family. And they were burning because she'd shown kindness to an old woman. "We have to help them," she said. "We have to run," Lucien countered. "Every moment we stay puts them in more danger." "They're already in danger." Nora spun on him, fury overriding fear. "Because of us."
Because you came.
Because my mother couldn't die like a normal person," Lucien finished coldly.
Yes.
"Welcome to the curse, healer. Everything we touch burns eventually." The howling erupted from the tunnel behind them, much closer now. Isara's eyes opened fully, suddenly lucid. "The bridge," she gasped. "Take me to the Bridge of Night. It's the only place the Order can't follow." "Mother, no. That bridge leads to—" "I know where it leads." Isara's voice held an edge of steel Nora had never heard before. "And it's the only place left where we might all survive." Below, another building caught fire. The hellhound's howling turned into snarls. And Lucien, the immortal vampire king, looked at his dying mother and the burning village, and the healer who'd stumbled into prophecy, and made a choice. "Run," he commanded. "Both of you."
Now.
They ran through the forest like ghosts fleeing dawn, Lucien carrying Isara, Nora stumbling behind with her medicine basket clutched against her chest. Behind them, the hellhound's snarls grew closer, punctuated by the crash of underbrush and the sharp commands of the Order's hunters. There, Lucien veered toward a structure rising from the trees, an old monastery, its stone walls crumbling, its cross long since fallen. Inside, quickly, the heavy wooden doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. They slipped through into darkness that smelled of rot and forgotten prayers. Lucien kicked the doors shut and dragged a broken pew across them. "That won't hold," Nora panted, her lungs burning. "It doesn't need to. Just needs to slow them down." He laid Isara on what remained of the altar, surprisingly gentle. "The monastery is built on sacred ground. The hellhounds can't enter. Only their masters can. How much time does that buy us?" "Minutes. Maybe an hour if we're blessed." His laugh was bitter. "Though I doubt any blessings reach this far into damnation." Nora knelt beside Isara, whose breathing had turned ragged. She pulled out her herbs with shaking hands, feverfew, yarrow, the dark powder, but even as she mixed them, she knew these weren't enough anymore. "She's fading," Nora whispered. "The cold, the running, her body can't take much more." Lucien stood at a shattered window, watching the forest. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched into fists. "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." "And when she dies?" Nora looked up at him. "You tell me. You're the one bound to her." He turned from the window, and in the dim light filtering through broken walls, he looked less like a king and more like a lost boy. "When she dies, the curse breaks. My immortality burns away. I become what I was, a mortal man dying of plague." He touched his chest. "I'll have perhaps minutes before the disease that killed me 3 centuries ago finishes what it started. Can't you, I don't know, drink blood? Isn't that what vampires do? Blood sustains us. It doesn't cure us." Lucien moved to the altar, staring down at his mother. "The only thing keeping me alive is her guilt-driven resurrection spell. When that ends, so do I." Isara's hand lifted weakly, finding his. I'm sorry, she breathed. I thought I was saving you. You were, his voice cracked. That's the worst part. You saved me because you loved me, and that love became a cage for both of us. Nora watched them, this immortal king and his dying creator, and saw not monsters, but a mother and son trapped in a tragedy neither had chosen. An idea formed. Dangerous. Possibly insane. What if we don't let the curse break? She said slowly. Both of them looked at her. Explain, Lucian demanded. Your mother used magic to bind your life to hers, yes? To keep you alive even after death. Nora's mind raced through half-remembered lessons from her grandmother. What if we reinforce that binding? Give her enough strength to hold on until we reach somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe, Lucian said flatly. The Bridge of Night. Isara's voice was barely audible. You mentioned it, Mother. What's there? Isara's eyes closed.
A choice.
But to reach it, I need strength I don't have. What kind of strength? Nora pressed. Life force. Lucian's voice was hard. She needs to drain life from someone living. That's what the resurrection spell requires in exchange. Life for life, blood for blood. He looked at Nora with something like pity. She needs you to die a little so she can live a little longer. The monastery walls trembled as something massive struck the doors. The hellhounds testing barriers. Nora swallowed hard. Will it kill me? Eventually, Lucian didn't soften it. A little each time, until there's nothing left to give. How many times before I... 3, maybe 4 if you're strong, his red eyes bored into hers. This isn't a healing, girl. This is sacrifice. Outside, men's voices joined the hellhounds. The order had caught up. Nora looked at Isara, at this woman who'd been kind in her way, who'd listened to stories of village life with hunger in her eyes, who'd said thank you after every visit, as if Nora's presence was a gift. She looked at Lucian, at the desperation he was trying to hide behind cold pragmatism. She thought of her burning village, of the baker's son with his broken arm, of all the people she'd helped because that's what healers did. Sometimes healing meant sacrifice.
Tell me what to do, she said.
Nora, Lucian started. Tell me what to do, she repeated, rolling up her sleeve. Before I lose my nerve. Isara's eyes opened, filled with tears. Child, you don't have to. I know. Nora knelt beside the altar. But you said it yourself once.
Sometimes kindness is a chain.
Well, I'm choosing this chain. Lucian stared at her for a long moment, something like wonder crossing his face. Then he nodded. Put your hand over her heart, he instructed quietly. And don't let go, no matter how much it hurts. Nora placed her palm against Isara's chest. Now, Lucian said, placing his hand over Nora's, the spell requires words. Repeat after me. By blood given, by life shared, by mercy's price. The monastery doors exploded inward. And as the order poured through with holy fire and silver chains, Nora spoke the words that would bind her life to a vampire's curse. The ritual completed in a flash of searing cold. Nora gasped as something pulled from deep inside her, not blood, but essence, flowing through her palm into Isara's chest. The old woman's eyes blazed silver for just a moment, and color returned to her gray skin. Then the order's leader stepped through the shattered doorway. He was younger than Nora expected, perhaps 30, with a scarred face and eyes that burned with zealot's fire. A silver cross hung at his chest, and in his hands he carried chains that glowed with holy light. Lucian Valderin, he announced, his voice echoing off broken stone. By the authority of the dawn, you are condemned. Captain Thorn. Lucian stepped in front of Nora and Isara, his body a shield. Still following orders like a good dog. Better a dog of heaven than a king of hell. Thorn raised his hand, and 20 soldiers fanned out behind him, crossbows loaded with silver bolts. Surrender, and the humans live. Liar. Lucian's shadow stretched across the floor, darkening. You've already burned the village. You don't leave witnesses. A regrettable necessity, Thorn's expression didn't change. Vampire corruption spreads like disease. We cauterize to save the body. Nora felt Isara sit up behind her. Actually sit up, stronger than she'd been in years. The life force transfer had worked. But at what cost? Nora's hands were shaking, her vision swimming. "We're leaving," Isara said, her voice clear and commanding. "And you won't follow." Thorn laughed. Bold words for a dying vampire. "I'm not dying anymore." Isara rose from the altar, standing on her own for the first time since Nora had known her. Silver light traced through her veins, visible beneath her skin. "Thanks to this girl's sacrifice, I have strength enough for one final act." "Mother, what are you?" Lucian started. Isara touched the floor, and the symbols Nora had seen on her hut walls blazed to life across the monastery stones, ancient marks that predated the Christian cross, older than the order, older than kingdoms. "I carved these protections 300 years ago," Isara said quietly. "When I first learned what I'd made my son into. When I first tried to hide from my mistakes." The symbols flared brighter, and a wall of silver fire erupted between them and the order. The soldiers fell back, shielding their eyes. "Run," Isara commanded. "To the bridge. I'll hold them." "You can't," Nora began. "I just drank years from your life, child. I can hold them for the minutes you need." Isara turned, and her face held a fierce beauty. "Now go." Lucian grabbed Nora's arm, pulling her toward a back passage she hadn't noticed. Behind them, Thorn was shouting orders, and crossbow bolts flew through the silver flames, falling short. They burst from the monastery's rear into thin mountain air. The sun was rising, painting the peaks gold and crimson. This way, Lucian moved within human speed, half carrying Nora when she stumbled. Her body felt hollow, drained. Whatever the ritual had taken, it wasn't coming back quickly. They ran for what felt like hours but was probably minutes, climbing higher and higher until the trees thinned and they emerged onto a ridge. And there it was. The Bridge of Night. Nora had heard stories of it, local legends about a cursed bridge that appeared only in mist, built by ancient sorcerers to span the gap between the mortal realm and something else. Something darker. She'd always thought they were just stories. But here it stood, a massive structure of black stone spanning a canyon so deep its bottom disappeared into red mist. The bridge was carved with the same symbols from Isara's hut, thousands of them, pulsing with dim light. And at its far end, barely visible through the mist, loomed the silhouette of towers and spires, a city made of shadow and blood. The Vampire Kingdom. "If we cross," Lucian said quietly, "there's no return. That realm has been sealed for a century. Opening it will wake every sleeping vampire lord, every ancient horror we locked away when the wars ended." Nora stared at the abyss. "But Isara can be healed there. The kingdom's heart holds power, old magic, forbidden magic. It could restore her fully, break the curse properly instead of letting it decay." He paused. "But the cost. The cost is unleashing an army of vampires on the world," Nora finished. Yes. Behind them, bells rang out. The order had left the monastery. They were coming. Nora looked at Lucian, this king who'd burned cities, who'd admitted to terrible things, but who'd also carried his mother gently, who'd warned Nora of the ritual's cost, who was, she realized, just as trapped as anyone. "Your mother said the bridge offers a choice," Nora said. "What choice?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "Cross and save her by damning the world. Or stay and let her die, let me die, and let the order claim victory. Those aren't the only options, aren't they?" Nora turned to face the bridge fully, and a third option crystallized in her mind. Dangerous, possibly insane, but possible. What if we cross but don't open the full kingdom? What if we take only what we need to break the curse properly, then seal it again? "The bridge is all or nothing," Lucian said. "Cross it, and the seals break completely. That's how it was designed." "By vampires," Nora countered. "But what if a human sealed it? Someone with no connection to that realm? Lucian stared at her. You? I'm a healer. I work with life force, with the energy that flows through living things. Nora's grandmother had taught her this, though she'd never fully understood it. If I can give life to keep Isara alive, maybe I can use that same power too. An explosion behind them, the monastery going up in flames. And through the smoke, Isara appeared, actually running, with the order close behind. Her silver light was fading. The protection spell had exhausted her. "Gio," she screamed. "Don't wait for me." Thorn raised his crossbow. Lucian's hand found Nora's. "Your choice, healer," he said quietly. "Cross and risk everything. Or stay and die certain." The bolt flew. And Nora made her choice. Nora pulled Lucian onto the bridge. The moment her foot touched black stone, the world screamed. The canyon erupted with red mist that clawed upward like grasping hands. The symbols carved into the bridge blazed so bright she had to shield her eyes. And from the distant kingdom across the span, she heard something wake, something vast and hungry and ancient. "What have you done?" Lucian breathed, but he was already moving, dragging her forward. Behind them, Isara reached the bridge's edge. Thorn's bolt had struck her shoulder, and silver blood streamed down her arm. She stumbled but didn't fall. "Stop," Thorn commanded, his soldiers forming a line at the canyon's edge. "Step back from the bridge, and we'll make your deaths quick." "Your mercy is as empty as your faith," Isara called back. She stepped onto the bridge, and the stone sang beneath her feet, recognizing one of its makers. The order didn't follow. Couldn't follow. Whatever bound them to their holy mission also forbade them from stepping onto cursed ground. But they had other weapons. Thorn pulled out a crystal vial filled with golden liquid, holy oil, Nora realized with horror. The kind that burned supernatural flesh like acid. "If we can't take you," Thorn said, raising the vial, "then no one will." He threw it. The vial shattered against the bridge's center, and flames erupted, not normal fire but sanctified flames that ate at the stone itself. The ancient symbols cracked and blackened. The bridge shuddered. "It's going to collapse." Nora's fingers tightened around Lucian's hand. "Then we run faster," but even as he said it, more vials flew through the air. The Order was trying to destroy the bridge with them still on it. They were halfway across when Isara stumbled. The silver light that had sustained her was guttering out like a dying candle. The life force Nora had given was spent. Lucian turned back, reaching for his mother. "Don't," Isara said quietly.
"Keep her safe."
"That's all I ask, Mother." "I'm tired, Lucian," she smiled, and it transformed her face. Nora could suddenly see the woman she'd been before centuries of guilt had hollowed her out. "So tired of running. Of hiding. Of watching you suffer for my choices." Another vial struck near her feet. Flames roared up, and a section of bridge crumbled into the abyss. "There's still time," Lucian said desperately. "We can reach the kingdom, use its power." "To what end?" Isara looked past him to where the shadowed city loomed. "To wake horrors that should stay sleeping? To curse this girl further?" Her eyes found Nora's. "She's already given too much." It was true. Nora could feel the emptiness inside her, the hollow place where years of her life had been carved away. Her hands trembled. Her heartbeat was irregular. "I made a choice 300 years ago," Isara continued, stepping closer even as flames licked at her feet. "I chose love over wisdom, desperation over acceptance. I brought my son back from death and made him a monster because I couldn't let him go." "You saved me," Lucian said, and his voice broke on the words. "I cursed you." Isara touched his face with her bloodied hand. "But curses can be broken. Not with more magic, not with more sacrifice. With something simpler." "What?" Nora asked. Isara turned to her, eyes bright with tears. "With a mother's final gift, release." She moved before either of them could stop her, stepping backward, toward the flames, toward the edge where the bridge was crumbling.
No.
Lucien lunged for her, but she was already falling back, arms spread wide like wings. You were born of mercy, my son, Isara called out as she fell. Don't let it be your end. Let it be your beginning. And then she did something Nora would never forget. She grabbed Captain Thorne's ankle. The Order's leader had stepped too close to the edge, still throwing his vials. Isara's hand shot out with the last of her supernatural strength, clamping around his boot. If I burn, she said with fierce finality, you burn with me. Thorne's eyes widened in shock. He tried to pull back, but Isara's grip was iron. His soldiers grabbed for him, but it was too late. Vampire and Hunter went over the edge together, tumbling into the red mist. Lucien screamed, a sound of pure anguish that shook the bridge. He started to jump after her, but Nora threw her arms around him, holding him back with strength she didn't know she had. She chose this. Nora shouted over the roar of flames. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless. The bridge lurched violently. More stones fell away. The Order soldiers were retreating, their leader gone, their holy fire having done its work. And Lucien, the immortal vampire king, collapsed to his knees. Nora felt it happen through their contact, the curse breaking, the ancient magic unraveling. 300 years of power burning away in an instant. When Lucien looked up at her, his eyes were no longer red. They were brown, human, mortal. I can feel it, he whispered. My heart, it's slowing. The plague, it's... He coughed, and blood speckled his lips. The disease that had killed him centuries ago, held at bay by his mother's spell, was finally claiming its due. No, Nora said fiercely. She pulled him to his feet. Not after all this. Not after what she gave. The bridge groaned, tilting dangerously. Behind them, the vampire kingdom's towers were fading, the seals were forming with Isara's death. Ahead, the mortal side beckoned, but the path was engulfed in flames. Lucien was dying in her arms. And Nora had one impossible choice left to make. Nora's grandmother had once told her that healing wasn't about stopping death, it was about choosing what lived. She chose. Hold on to me, she commanded, wrapping Lucien's arm around her shoulders. He was already weakening, his breath coming in wet gasps. The plague was moving fast, 3 centuries of disease compressed into minutes. Leave me, he managed. The bridge won't. Shut up, Nora half-dragged, half-carried him toward the flames. Her mind raced through everything her grandmother had taught her about life force, about the energy that bound living things. She'd given years to Isara. What if she could give something to Lucien? Not immortality, that curse was broken, but time. Just enough time. They reached the wall of sanctified fire. Heat seared Nora's face. The flames weren't natural. They wouldn't just burn. They would purify, destroying anything touched by darkness. Lucien would be ash in seconds. Unless... My blood, Nora said suddenly. It's not vampire blood. The holy fire won't hurt me the same way. What are you? Lucien coughed violently, more blood on his lips. You can't. But Nora was already pulling out the small knife she kept for cutting herbs. She sliced her palm open, hissing at the pain, then pressed her bleeding hand against Lucien's mouth. Drink, she ordered. I'm not a vampire anymore, he protested weakly. Human blood won't. You're still dying of plague. And my blood carries the life force from the ritual, the same magic that kept your mother alive. Nora's voice was steady despite her shaking hands. So drink or die or both. Your choice. Their eyes met. In his mortal brown gaze, she saw understanding dawn. He drank. Not like a vampire, no fangs, no supernatural hunger. Just a dying man accepting medicine from a healer who refused to give up. The moment his lips touched her blood, Nora felt the connection, the same pulling sensation from the ritual, but different. Not taking life, but sharing it. The plague inside him recoiled. Not gone. Not cured. But pushed back, given a few hours instead of minutes. Now, Nora said, feeling dizzy, we run through fire. She pulled her cloak tight around both of them and charged into the flames. The holy fire screamed against the fabric, catching and burning, but Nora's body, mortal, unmarked by darkness, parted the worst of it like a shield. Lucien pressed against her back, sheltering in her shadow. His skin blistered where flames touched him, but they made it through. They emerged on the mortal side as the bridge gave its final groan and collapsed behind them, taking the flames and the connection to the vampire kingdom into the red mist forever. Nora and Lucien collapsed on solid ground, gasping. The Order's remaining soldiers stared at them from 50 feet away, uncertain. Their leader was dead. Their holy fire had failed. And the vampire they'd hunted had just crossed purifying flames. One soldier raised his crossbow. Stand down. A woman's voice rang out, one of the Order's priests, older than the rest. She studied Lucien with sharp eyes. His eyes are mortal. The curse is broken. He's no longer our enemy. He's still a vampire, the soldier protested. He's a dying man, the priest corrected. And we are not murderers. The soldier hesitated, then lowered his weapon. The priest approached slowly, carefully. She knelt beside Lucien, examining him with a healer's eye. Hours at most, she pronounced. The plague will take him by nightfall. No, Nora said hoarsely. I can. You can barely stand, child. The priest's voice wasn't unkind. You've given too much already. I can see it in your eyes, the hollowness. You've traded years of your life. Then what's a few more? Nora tried to stand, and nearly fell. Lucien caught her with trembling hands. Enough, he whispered. You've done enough. It's not enough if you die. Everyone dies, he smiled weakly. I was supposed to die 300 years ago. Every day since has been borrowed time. Maybe it's finally time to pay it back. After everything? Nora's voice cracked. After your mother sacrificed herself to free you. She freed me to live, Lucien said. Even if only for a few hours. That's more than most vampires ever get, a chance to feel mortal again. To feel the sun. He looked up at the rising dawn.
To feel.
Human. The priest stood. There's a chapel half a mile down this path. We'll take you there. You can rest at least. No, Lucien shook his head. No holy ground. I've had enough of churches and curses. He looked at Nora. Just somewhere quiet. Nora thought of her burned village, her destroyed home. Then she remembered the old watchtower on the hill, the one where she used to sit and study her grandmother's herb journals. I know a place, she said. The Order let them go, the priest's authority holding back any protests. Nora supported Lucien as they climbed the hill, each step in agony. They reached the watchtower as the sun fully broke the horizon. Lucien collapsed against the stone wall, his breathing labored. Nora sat beside him, exhausted beyond measure. Tell me, Lucien said quietly, about your village. Before we burned it. So Nora talked, describing the baker's terrible jokes, the blacksmith's daughter's secret romance, Father Benedict's creative sermons. She talked until her voice grew hoarse, painting pictures of ordinary life for a king who'd forgotten what ordinary meant. And as noon approached, Lucien's breathing grew shallower. His hand found hers. Thank you, he whispered, for trying to save a monster. You were never a monster, Nora said. Just a boy who died too young. Lucien's eyes closed. And Nora sat with him, holding his hand, as the plague finally claimed what death had been owed for 300 years. Lucien died at sunset. Nora felt it, the final breath leaving his body, the last heartbeat fading into silence. She sat with him for a long time after, holding his cooling hand, watching the stars emerge one by one above the watchtower. She should have felt grief, should have cried. Instead, she felt numb,
Hollow.
like the years carved from her life had taken her emotions too. The Order's priest found her at midnight. We must burn the body, the woman said gently. It's protocol. Even mortal, vampire remains can. No, Nora's voice was flat. He wasn't a vampire when he died. He was just a man who had plague. You don't burn plague victims. You bury them. The priest studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. We'll prepare a grave. They buried Lucien at dawn in the meadow below the watchtower, where wildflowers grew.
No marquer. No ceremony.
Just earth and sky, and the quiet that comes after storms. Nora stood at the graveside after the others left, looking at her hands. In the early light, she could see them clearly, silver veins threading beneath her skin, faint but visible. The ritual's mark, evidence of the life force she'd given away. She wondered how many years she had left. 5? 10? Would she even make it to 30? Did it matter? The Order offered her sanctuary, a place among their healers, protection from those who might call her vampire-touched.
She refused.
She'd had enough of holy missions and righteous fire. Instead, she walked. For 3 months, Nora wandered. She avoided her destroyed village, avoided anywhere that might hold memories. She survived by trading healing services for food and shelter, moving from town to town like a ghost. The silver veins spread slowly up her arms. And stranger still, she began to feel things that weren't hers. Echoes. Phantom sensations. A heartbeat that wasn't her own. At first, she thought she was dying. Some side effect of the ritual, perhaps. But the heartbeat was too steady, too strong. It beat in rhythm with her own, like a second pulse layered over the first. On the 4th month, she dreamed of blood and fire and a voice calling her name. She woke gasping, her hand pressed to her chest where the phantom heartbeat thundered.
Impossible.
But the feeling wouldn't leave. It pulled at her, insistent as a thread tied around her ribs, tugging her north. Back toward the mountains. Back toward the bridge ruins. She tried to ignore it.
Failed.
On a cold evening in late autumn, Nora found herself climbing the path to where the Bridge of Night had stood. The canyon was still there, the red mist still churning in its depths. But the bridge was gone, just broken pylons jutting from either side like broken teeth. The Order had built a small memorial on the mortal side. Stones carved with the names of those who died. Captain Thorne, Lady Asara, others from the village fire. No stone for Lucien. Monsters didn't get memorials. Nora pulled a lantern from her pack and lit it, setting it among the stones. For Asara, who'd chosen freedom over eternal guilt. For the baker and the blacksmith and all the innocent people caught in ancient curses. For the vampire king who'd been, at the end, just a frightened boy wanting to go home. You kept her mercy alive. Nora spun around, heart hammering. A figure stood in the shadows, tall, dark-haired, wrapped in a cloak too thin for the mountain cold. He stepped forward into the lantern light, and Nora's breath caught. Lucien. But not Lucien. His eyes were brown, mortal, but something in them held ancient memory. His face was the same but younger somehow, unmarked by centuries. And his hands.
No clothes. No supernatural pole.
Just human hands, rough and scarred and trembling slightly.
How?
Nora whispered. I don't know. His voice was hoarse, uncertain. I remember dying. I remember the plague finally taking me, and I was ready. At peace, he touched his chest. Then I woke in the dark, underground. Dug myself out of the grave you gave me. That's not possible. I know, he laughed shakily. Believe me, I know. I've spent 3 months trying to understand it. I'm not immortal. I can feel hunger, cold, exhaustion. I age. I bleed. I'm completely, utterly human. Then why? You Lucien met her eyes. The blood you gave me on the bridge. The life force from the ritual. When I drank it, something transferred. Not vampirism. Something else. A connection. Nora looked down at her silver-veined hands. At the phantom heartbeat still pulsing in her chest. Your heartbeat, she said slowly. I've been feeling it for months. And I've been feeling yours. Lucian stepped closer. Whatever the ritual did, whatever happened when you fed me your blood, it bound us. Not like the curse bound me to my mother,
But
like roots intertwining. Two lives sharing the same soil. That's insane. So was everything else. He smiled, and it transformed his face. Genuine warmth instead of cold fury. I think, maybe, when you gave me your blood infused with that life force magic, you accidentally gave me what my mother never could, a real second chance. Not immortality. Not power.
just life.
Human life. Tied to yours. Nora's mind reeled. So, if I die, I don't know. Maybe I die too. Maybe we just separate. He shrugged helplessly. I'm mortal now. I don't have answers anymore, just questions. The wind picked up, carrying snow. Winter coming early to the mountains. What do we do? Nora asked. Lucian looked at the bridge ruins, at the memorial stones, at the sky beginning to lighten with dawn. My mother spent 300 years running from her choices. I spent 300 years trapped by them. He turned to Nora. Maybe we just live. However long we have. However it works. We figured out together. I don't even know you, Nora said, but there was no heat in it. You held my hand while I died. You gave your life to save my mother. You carried me through holy fire. Lucian's expression softened. I think you know me better than anyone ever has. Nora looked at this impossible man, this king made mortal, this vampire made human, this ancient creature given a second chance at something ordinary. She thought of her grandmother's words. Healing isn't about stopping death. It's about choosing what lives. Maybe she'd chosen this, somehow. In that ritual, on that bridge, in every moment she'd refused to give up. Maybe mercy had its own magic, messier and stranger than any curse. I have a cousin, Nora said finally. 2 valleys over. She runs an inn. She might have space for 2 travelers who need work.
An inn?
Lucian's lips quirked. I was a king. You were a king. Now you're a man who needs breakfast and a job. Nora picked up her lantern. Can you cook? I haven't eaten food in 3 centuries. Then you'll learn. She started down the path, then paused. Are you coming? Lucian looked back one last time at the ruins, at the chasm that had held his kingdom, at the memorial for his mother. Then he turned away from the past and followed the healer into the dawn. Behind them, the lantern continued to burn, its light reflecting off the snow. The vampire king was dead. But somewhere in the mountains, 2 people with silver-veined hands and intertwined heartbeats walked toward an uncertain future, carrying with them the last gift of a mother's love and the strange, persistent power of mercy. The eternal night had ended. And morning, finally, had come. The end.